the danger for me of offering false hope seems to be growing. It'd be over in 12 weeks, be over by Christmas, it'd be over by this, be over. But they've got no idea, and why can't they admit that? This is the strangest thing. I do have a pet theory that it has something to do with how we're raised, and that female leaders are rather better at acknowledging the fundamental unknowability of life. You get something like a coronavirus. Remember when it first emerged, and I think we probably should have worked a little harder to keep the word novel in public discourse. A novel coronavirus, novel referring, of course, to the fact that it's new. And because it's new, it's almost impossible to understand in the short term and difficult in the long term, given adaptation and mutation. But the female leaders, this is a very broad generalisation. It's a brushstroke rather than a detail. But the female leaders seem more comfortable with the unknowability of existence. Men, I think, particularly men with leadership ambitions, convince themselves from a very early age that they can do anything. They can control, they can fix, they can fight their way out of any problem. And you know, life teaches us that often we can, but we end up bankrupt almost. There is nothing in our toolbox for tackling problems like this. And that, for my money, is why female leaders have generally performed a lot better during the coronavirus. They're not more risk averse. They're just more information hungry. So a Jacinda Ardern, for example, or perhaps an Angela Merkel, will take all of the available information, they'll take all of the available expertise and make their judgment really quite carefully, even if that judgment is to take a big risk, as opposed to a sense in this country at the moment, in England in particular, that they're kind of... Well, Mark Drakeford said yesterday, didn't he, from Wales, that he admitted we are rolling the dice a bit. We can't be sure that this is the best way, and all options are bad in some ways. That there is no good decision to take, and it's about what is the least bad. That's not semantics. That seems to me to be a crucial point of understanding the difference between a good plan and the least bad, or good consequences of your plan and the least bad consequences of your plan. If you've got a politician who is, and I think this is important, if you've got a politician who is twisted enough inside to genuinely think that he can say out loud to the public, and of course you can't blame him for thinking he'd get away with this because he's Prime Minister now, but to say out loud to the public, I'm in favour of having my cake and eating it, which clearly in Boris Johnson's case is actually a little bit more than a pithy catchphrase. It's a reflection of his entire life. It's a position you can hold if you expect everybody else to clean up after you and that your actions will have no meaningful consequences. I'm very in favour of having my cake and eating it. And that's the problem. Somebody like that seems to me to be psychologically incapable of processing choices where every outcome is bad, and your job is simply to identify the least bad one. He has to keep throwing us bones that are dressed up as good news. It'll be over in 12 weeks. It's world-beating. It's a moonshot, folks. It's getting silly now and dangerous. This sort of ludicrous, pantomime-ish politics that Boris Johnson is, to be fair, very good at. He's very good at, oh no, he isn't, oh yes, he is. I'm going to have my cake and eat it. And it's great when you're campaigning, if you care about winning more than you care about truth. But it's no use here, is it? It's really no use here. And the single biggest hurdle that he seems genetically incapable of overcoming, although for my money it's more nurture than nature, is the idea that there is no good news. Well, hang on a minute. What's the point of me being out there waving a flag if all the flags are bad? Well, your job is to be honest. Your job is to be across the facts, and your job is to explain why we're doing that instead of that, because we think that that will be less bad than this. I don't think this should need explaining, but I'm very, very unpersuaded that anyone in Downing Street sees it quite as clearly as you.